In this episode, I do a little bit of a 2021 recap. I talk about all the things that have changed for me in the past year. I catch you guys up on all the things you've missed because I've been a little MIA the past couple months, and I talk about all the different things I learned from all the change that happened to me last year. Think of this episode as a little bit of a get to know Jess better, but I also dive into why New Year's resolutions kind of don't work and are a little bit of bullshit. Stay with me. I still talk about my own resolutions, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome back to Human to Human. Welcome to the first episode of 2022. Yes, it's true. You see it. There's new branding. And I've recorded this episode once fully before, and then I tried to record the second one, and I stopped recording it, and I think it was because I felt like I needed to explain myself with the cover art, because I've had some friends, some close people be like, whoa, Jessica, this is so different. And listen, guys, I have a whole ass fucking vision for Human to Human. Human to Human is not just a podcast. It is a brand. It is a company. It may be a book one day. It could be a therapy practice one day. Okay? And I have changed my cover art. This is the fourth time. But guys, this is professional. I have paid Brands Media Group to make a stunning Instagram feed at Human to Human Pod. Go watch, go listen. And I want something to just put out the vibes of calm and beautiful and professional and clean, because I am all of those things. No, but I am just so excited for my dreams of what Human to Human is going to become, and I wanted just a really clean, beautiful, professional logo and Instagram feed to reflect that. One day I want to have this Human to Human Pod website that just shows everything and you can submit questions. And guys, there's a far off plan, like far into the future plan that I see, so I just need you to trust me here, okay, moving on from the new branding. I'm so excited. I'm just so happy. It's so important to ask for help sometimes, because I am not a designer. I am a podcaster. I am a creative, but not in the way of visually pleasing things. So I'm just so happy to not have to do it myself anymore. Yay! But I am so excited to be sitting here. It is the first episode of 2022, and I'm gonna kind of bash on your 2022 mindsets, because it's not a new year, new me, and that is because humans created New Year's, okay? Humans created January. They were like, January is a new year. And then capitalism and societies were like, oh, yes, and we need to profit off of this time of year, because we can say, oh, you need this and this and this to be a new version of you, and you need to buy all these things, and you suck. And Glennon Doyle talks about this. I haven't even listened to her full podcast episode about it, but I saw it on Instagram. She talks about how it's literally companies and society telling us, you suck and you need to be better. There needs to be a new version of you in this new year. And so there's all this pressure on January to reinvent yourself. And listen, I'm going to talk about my New Year's resolution still. I'm not just here to like bash on everything. I'm also here to participate. But I'm just here to give a little bit of a reality check, because there's so much pressure around New Year's Day specifically, I feel like, to be this like brand new day, this day with so much hope and newness and optimism. Guys, I don't know about you, I was hungover as fuck on New Year's Day and talked to my therapist about it like 4 days later. Seriously, because I mean, how am I supposed to start on my goals when I feel like absolute death? And then I got the Rona. I have the Rona currently. So that's just like a really, really fun way to start off the new year. But in my therapy session, I was like, there's just so much pressure. There's so much pressure from the world. There's so much pressure from society to new year, new me. I love me. I'm happy with who I am. Yes, there are intentions I'm gonna set, but like, I don't want to, put all this pressure to change and evolve, because our entire lives are transitionary periods. My therapist said we are literally transitioning until we're 25, like in big ways, but we're transitioning our entire lives. And I talked to her about like, okay, how can every day be a bit of a transition for me. Not one day, not 1 month of the year. Listen, bitches. This is coming out close to the 3rd week of January, if not on the 3rd week of January. A little secret, me therapist told me, is the 3rd week of January is the busiest time for therapists and social workers. Can we guess why? Can we guess why? 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 Jess, tell us. I don't know. It's because all your New Year resolutions, it's the 3rd week. The first one, you were like, yes, I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to work out every single day and drink 1,000,000 cups of water a day. And then the 2nd week, you're like, okay, I'm still trying. And the 3rd week, you crash. You crash. Because guess what, guys? It is so challenging to change habits you've had for your entire life. And that's okay. We're not supposed to do it in a day. That sounds crazy. If you think about it, you sit down with yourself, or like think 1 month, I'm just going to change everything. Honey, seriously? Like, you're just asking for disappointment. So that's like my fun little intro for this episode. But I will talk about my New Year's resolutions because I do have some. And in my therapy session, I talked about how I was literally putting pressure on myself to make them come true. And I have to take pauses to like sniff because I have the sniffles. My New Year's resolutions were more like intentions. And I experienced so much change in 2021. It is crazy. This episode, if you haven't read the title, is all about change. I don't know what the title is actually, so I don't know if it indicates that, but it's all about change. We don't just change in January, we change over the entire course of our year. It is crazy. When I think about 2021, walking into it, well, first of all, if we're really gonna walk into it, I was obsessed with a guy I'd gone on 1 date with. I became heartbroken by a guy I went on 1 date with tell me he didn't want to keep seeing me. Talk about like imagining a whole thing for who someone is without actually like fucking knowing who the person is. Like, I just like created this whole personality and relationship that did not exist. And I was still working at a pharmacy. Guys, I was still working at the job that I worked at when I was 15. Granted, I didn't work at it for 5 years straight. Thank God. I took like a year and a half off, but I went back at the end of 2020 when I came back from Vancouver because I was a broke bitch. And I still worked at that job till April of 2021. And I was so unhappy. And in the beginning of 2021, are we ready to announce this on the podcast for the first time? Because I felt so much shame about this. I got diagnosed with an STI. Yeah, that's right, bitches. I've had chlamydia and didn't know for 4 months. Spoiler alert, nobody's perfect. So the beginning of 2021 for me was like figuring out my shit. Like, truly, I was in a much unhappier place. I hated the courses I was taking in my school, in my my semester. I was taking biological psychology. Bio is just not my thing. Anyway, you don't care what courses I was taking. And I was like obsessed with trying to find a boyfriend, like so obsessed. And the beginning of 2021 was pretty exciting for the podcast, but I slowly started to lose myself because I wasn't making content that I wanted to make as much. I wouldn't change anything, but because also a guest led me to my BF. But the beginning of 2021, I just wasn't myself. I was working through shame. I was going to therapy often, but probably not as often as I needed at that time. And I just had such a different, I think I was so controlling over what I wanted my life to be. And in an episode soon, I will tell a story about this, crazy 2 dates I went on with this guy that it ended so weird. It ended so fucking weird. Stay tuned for February. All episodes are about dating. I mean, Valentine's Day is in February. So I'm going to talk about being single. I'm going to talk about the talking stage. I'm going to talk about dating. I'm going to talk about breakups. And this whack story will come then. So subscribe so you don't fucking miss it. Okay, anyway. But this situation made me go, no, I need to focus on myself. This I can't put all my eggs in one basket into a dating basket. I don't need a man. I don't need to be single. I don't need to be in a relationship. I knew I didn't need to be single. I did not want to be single at that time. But I started to let go. I started to let go of trying to control so much. And life changes so fast. And when we don't feel like it's changing, it kind of creeps up on us, and we can try so hard to grip on so tight to the future that we want. But if we let go and like let the universe and life do its thing, and the people who are supposed to come into our path come, such incredible things can happen. It is insane. In May of 2021, my boyfriend came into my life. And in May of 2021, okay, well, he didn't like come into my life. He DM'd me on Instagram in April, and then we ended up hanging out in May because of the podcast. So thanks, bitches, because I don't know, I'm thanking you. The fact that you listened, I think I'm thanking you, but I would probably do this if nobody listened. And I started a brand new job. And so to kind of do some like reflecting on how much changes in a year, I just want to like acknowledge some crazy things that happened in 2021 that I'm so proud of myself for. And if you're bored, I mean, sucks. I think I'm still fun. And like, I encourage you to like reflect on your 2021. And I did a journaling practice, and one of the questions was like, what did you accomplish? Honey, it took me a hot second. I was like, what did I accomplish? Did I accomplish anything? Girly, of course you did. It was a whole year. And I love it because my boyfriend was like, Jess, because I didn't think about anything podcast-wise that I accomplished, which is sad. Bro, this whole thing is an accomplishment. But he was like, every single episode you've put out is an accomplishment, which is so beautiful because I get so stuck in like societal pressure in the podcast world of like, post every single week you need to post. And guys, I don't know if my episodes would be good if I posted every single week. I think half the time I'd show up and be like, hi guys, I have nothing to say, I'm sad, you know? And sometimes you just don't need that in your life. And I was thinking about my accomplishments, and one huge accomplishment was that I always wanted to be an assistant, and I went to Vancouver to try and be an assistant. Didn't go well, but I got the job as an assistant this year, and what I'm even more proud of is I left the job. Being an assistant, you become so engrossed in someone's life, and I was doing it part-time, and it felt like full-time, even though the workload wasn't completely full-time, but just the amount I was involved in someone else's home life too was just a lot. And so I'm so proud of myself. I reached out, I put myself out there to get this job, and then I like mustered up the courage in the last few months of 2021 to be like, no, I'm gonna leave this job. And it was a terrifying change to make, but as soon as I said out loud that the work I was doing, I wasn't loving anymore, and I think I learned as much as I wanted to learn out of it, I was like, I can't go back now. Like, once you acknowledge something about how you're feeling about a situation, you don't want to live in your uncomfort or you don't want to live in your unhappiness. And I wasn't uncomfortable anymore in the job. I was so comfortable because I knew exactly what to do and what to expect. And that's when I was like, okay, it's time for me to focus way more on my psychology degree because I love it. I abandoned the podcast in the last few months of 2021, which made me so sad. And so I'm back, bitches! But I learned so much about myself by being so involved in a different work environment that I'd never lived before, and it allowed me to actually let go and say, you know what, like, I live with my parents, I have a financial cushion from savings, and I'm okay, and I'm very privileged and lucky to be in this position, but I'm gonna quit my job, and this semester I'm just gonna focus on the podcast and on school, and that's such a beautiful thing to be able to do, and I'm so grateful for it. And it's so hard based on, like, the pressures of society to like hustle and always be working and always have a side hustle and always be adding more to your plate. And if anyone is feeling so sluggish right now, it is winter. It is winter and it is hibernation time. That is what the seasons all bring something new, and winter is a time that you want to lay in your bed 10 times more than you usually do, and society doesn't acknowledge that. No one on Instagram really talks about how tiring the winter season is and how it is a time for you to rest way more than before. And so kind of for me in 2021, near the end of it, I got to like accept and sit with myself like, oh, I can slow down. I can take a step back. I don't need to be working on a million things at once anymore, which like just felt so good. And it's such a beautiful thing to just like pause. So whether we're deciding to create change in our life or change is happening to us, I think embracing it is such a better answer than to resist it. Because when you resist it, it's just so uncomfortable, and change is uncomfortable no matter what. Change is happening all around us all the time no matter what. And quitting my job, I chose that change, and I was so grateful for it, and I was still terrified. And it was hard because I still had to work there for a month and a half before I actually left. I mean, I know you can give 2 weeks notice, but I didn't. I gave like so much notice. But I learned so much in the experience. And when I was complaining so much about my job, it made me think like, okay, our emotions are indicators of what is going well and what is going wrong in our lives, and or not even what's going wrong, but what's something we're not loving, what's something that's not adding to us anymore, and we can take it as a reason to change. If you are needing to lie in your bed every single day, you might be burnt out and you might need to take time off. You might be depressed and you might want to seek help. And we can look at these quote unquote negative emotions as something that's wrong and something we need to change, and something that like we need to like move away from to become happy. Or we can look at these negative emotions and think, what are you trying to tell me? What do I need to do? What's not working for me right now? And those two things I just said sound very similar, and they kind of are, but it's important to look at your negative emotions and not think, this is so terrible. Why am I like this? This is awful. Why aren't I happy all the time? And if we didn't have the sad, if we didn't have the pain, and if we didn't have the grief, we wouldn't know the good. We wouldn't know the happy. So that brings me to another really big thing that happened in 2021 at the very end. In November, a childhood friend of mine that I was very, very close with from the age of like 8 years old to I think like 16, he died suddenly in a car accident, and he was 23, and the grief I felt in this situation was, and still feeling, is something I have never experienced in my entire life. And I tried to record a long episode about it, and I listened back, and I didn't love it, and I might eventually make an episode about grief, and I hope I do, and I really am trying to take away the expectations of an episode, because sometimes I think, like, I didn't touch on this or that or this, but it's like, episodes aren't supposed to encompass every possible thing under the sun about one topic. They're just my thoughts and opinions on it in one period of time, in that instance of time. And that's just like a really heavy episode to make, but I have been moving through so much grief in the past 3 months that it's just so a part of my life. And how I felt when he first died was insane. It was a state of shock and denial and sadness and confusion, and I felt like I lived in those 10 years that I lived when I was that age again. I felt like I was 16 again, and none of my close friends and my boyfriend knew me at that time, so it was so fucking weird to not be able to talk to them, and they don't know who I'm talking about. They never knew my friend that died. But it also allowed me to like see all my old friends that I feel like raised me. And it was this crazy experience. And this all comes back to the topic too, because things change without our choice of change. Like things will change when we don't want them to. It is so crazy. Like, I was literally partying and having so much fun with a friend, on like the Saturday night, and Monday morning I found out. And it just sends your entire life through a whirlwind, and we can never predict what's going to happen. And deaths in our lives can really shake us back to reality that life is so fucking precious. And this is one of my New Year's resolutions, is what the things that I will say I want to do one day, I want to do them now, or I want to make plans to do them sooner. Because for the longest time, I was like, I'm going to live in Vancouver one day. Maybe I'll move there for a year. And finally, like in 2020, I was like, why don't I just do this now? And the example right now for me is I have been thinking about moving out of my parents' house for months. In October, I started to talk to my friend about it and start to kind of like actually think about if she could transfer her lease to a 2-bedroom and all of this stuff. And then my friend passed away, and I was like, I can't even think about anything. Like, I am in the craziest state I've ever been in, and I just can't even wrap my head around doing anything that will make me more uncomfortable. And so now that I'm out of that initial early stage of the grief, and it's, I wouldn't say more steady now, but it comes in its waves. I just still feel this like itch inside of me to move out and take that next step of becoming the adult I can feel myself becoming and growing into. And so that's the thing. I was trying to logically talk myself into moving out in September, because I'll be starting my 4th and last year of my undergraduate degree. But I know I could possibly move out with my friend sooner than that, and so I was like, my heart kept telling me to do it. And if you live in Ontario, our fucking restaurants and gyms got closed at the beginning of January, and so as soon as that happened, I was like, I can't go to my gym anymore. Okay, why the fuck am I living with my parents? Because I love my gym close to here. But anyway, the things that, you know, you think, I really want to do that one day, we don't know how much time we have. And the podcast is going to take these turns when I say this, because it's true, and I learned this because I've experienced different deaths in my life, and this has been the most tragic. I mean, all deaths are fucking tragic, but it's really shaken me up, and just made me realize, like, we can go at any age. And something that I changed in 2021 that I never expected, and I never thought I would, was my eating habits. I have always eaten in, you know, a relatively healthy form, but like vegetables are not my jam. They just are not my jam. And I got yeast infections, guys, for 6 out of the 12 months of 2021. Half of the year, I got a yeast infection once every single month. Listen to my yeast infection journey. Just a little shimmy if you didn't see that. I released that episode a couple weeks ago or months ago or whatever, a couple episodes ago, and like literally an itchy coochie, like so often. And it was happening like when I met my boyfriend, like literally the worst timing, but it made me realize he is like the most incredible person. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm taking control of my health. I'm taking control of my nervous system, because honey, my nervous system is all over the place because I'm such a like hyper and intense person, and then I crash from being so crazy. And alongside of changing my health and feeling so good, and I cut out dairy, and it just makes my stomach feel so much better, and my poops. Along with that, it kind of coincided at a similar time. My therapist told me I'm healing. And I have been in therapy since April of 2020. And I've pretty much gone, I'd say once a month at least since then. And hearing that from a therapist, because I went to her, I did not know I was healing. I went to her and I was like, listen, this was in October, kind of the time when you're getting into like the hibernation part of winter, and you're starting to have to like get used to feeling like you want to lay in your bed way more than usual. And I said to her, I was like, I'm not feeling extremely passionate or extremely happy, but I'm also not feeling extremely exhausted and tired and whatever. And one thing she was like, well, you're probably lacking vitamin D, because I live in a fucking basement now, because I moved, whatever, you don't care. And then she was like, but Jess, like, this is something I really want. Everybody listen up, take this away. She was like, this is new for you. And because it's new, it feels uncomfortable and it feels quote unquote wrong, but you're healing. This is what we've been working towards. And it kind of coincided, I think, with really targeting my nervous system, because my nervous system is what was like super out of whack out of all my systems, with my holistic nutritionist, Katie, Holistically Humble on Instagram. And she was like, you are healing. You are experiencing peace. I am feeling at peace within myself. Just because that's new, it feels different, and we associate different with wrong. So we associate something that's like uncomfortable as something being wrong with us that we need to fix. But there are types of uncomfort and discomfort that you can also lean into, and you know when it's good for you. You know when this is like, oh no, this is bad, uncomfortable, this is crossing my boundaries, this is not aligned with my values, this isn't it. And then there are types of uncomfortable where you're like, oh my god, I'm a little bit scared, I'm a little fearful, what are they gonna think, like I don't know what to expect. And that is good, uncomfortable. Like for me, changing the branding, like I'm just like, wah! But I know if you sit with yourself and journal or do yoga or sit in silence or talk to a microphone like I am, and you feel the inside of you, like you feel like your heart center, you feel, I sound so spiritual, but you feel that inner intuition when you put the fear aside and you remove the things that you're scared of and that society is telling you. When you put fucking society away for a second, what does your chest feel like? Does it feel tight or does it feel expansive? Does your heart, does your inner core feel like this is something I've always wanted to do? This is something that feels so right for me. And this is something that feels good and I can trust myself. It's coming back to trusting yourself. Nobody knows what's really right for you except for you. My dad literally told me I shouldn't go to therapy in 2020. In 2020, he literally said, therapy, you're not going to get anything out of it. They're just going to tell you that like your problems are normal and yeah, like you're just going to feel like you wasted their time. Can you imagine? I don't think I'd have a podcast if I didn't do therapy. Thanks, fucking dad. But like, he was just telling me his own experience, but I had to sit here and listen to myself. I have to go against the societal pressures of being productive 24/7 and always needing to make money and say to myself, you are worthy, you are enough, even if you don't have income coming in your bank account all the time. Even if you're not creating stuff all the time, your productivity is not your self-worth. Oh, baby, can you tell I'm reading books about that shit? And I can't believe I'm healing, guys. I'm healing. And like, I didn't know this existed with therapy, but like, you can kind of uncover so much about yourself in therapy, and depending on your situation and your trauma and your life, you can kind of work through so many different things. And I just didn't know there was like a quote unquote end point. And I don't think there's ever like an end point, but my therapist said I'm at the maintenance point now, where I've kind of like reflected on so much of my past and so much of my relationships now, and how my parents affect me and how my brother affects me, and how, you know, growing up with all the people I did, with the friend that I had that passed away, like all of how those people affected me when I was young. And I talked to her about drinking recently too, because I got wasted on New Year's Eve, and coming down to like, what are my values? What are my boundaries? They're so clear to me, more than they ever were before. And I'm at a point now where I need a community to like continue this with and continue to talk about this with, because it is so much easier to revert back to our old habits. And this comes full circle to the New Year's resolution conversation. It's so easy to revert back because that's what our instinct is. If every single day for like 20 years you believed that like you have to hustle to be worthy and you have to keep up with everybody else, it's gonna take active effort to try and change that. If I never did yoga anymore, it's gonna take mental energy to get me to my yoga mat to do yoga every single day. And that's just life. And eventually it won't be as fucking hard. But creating new habits is fucking hard. And it's not just going to happen in January. And it's not just going to happen overnight. And my therapist and I talked about how can we make every single day a transition in a way that's empowering, not in a way that talks down to you. New Year's talks down to you and says you suck and you need to become a new version of yourself, and here is the only time in the year to do that. Guys, what the fuck? Can someone else call bullshit, please? I know Glennon Doyle is, and my therapist is, so like there's 3 of us. So it's crazy because my New Year's resolutions were to continue to find peace within myself, to slow down, to do the things I want to do one day right now, to really, you know, also just get comfortable in my skin and not rush anything and not race to keep up with anybody, and just really continue what I've been kind of experiencing in 2021. And it's crazy, when my friend died too, I thought, I was so upset, and hurt and sad, and it was so much to wrap my head around. And a thought I came to was, I'm healing. My therapist just said that I've healed. And now this. And situations in our life don't take us back 5 steps. I am still the healed version I am right now, and I'm going to continue healing. The journey never ends. Growing never ends. You continue to grow and change throughout your whole life, hopefully. Can you imagine how fucking boring and lame your life is if you're not? And I had to say to myself, you are still that healed version of yourself, and you are handling this death so differently than you would 2 years ago because of everything you've learned in therapy. And I had so much more grace with myself because something about grief is you're so quote unquote unproductive. What you could do in a day is so much less when you are grieving. And grieving is something that happens throughout your whole life, and you never get over a death. But I had to have so much grace with myself, and I did. And I asked for help when I needed it. And this takes me to a crazy part of 2021, which I didn't expect, was I fell in love. I fell in love. And this man has taught me and continues to teach me what support you can receive from someone, what support is, what honesty and open and loving and non-judgmental communication is with somebody. We are constantly saying to each other, like I say to him a lot, like, let me surprise you. Let my reaction surprise you. And his reaction surprised me too, because we come into our relationship as who we are, accumulated from our entire past up until now. And we've both experienced relationships that weren't the most positive in our lives and weren't the healthiest. And so we have fears from that come into our situation now and our experience together now. And so when I am scared to show him a vulnerable part of myself because I subconsciously think he's going to react the way my ex-boyfriend did, I have to give him the chance to surprise me. And he has taught me so much about what it feels like to be an empowered woman and to date a man who not only is not scared of an empowered woman, but he is empowered through empowering me. And it exists. And I'm going to talk about it more, I promise. And I feel like this entire episode is me touching on little topics that I'm going to dive into over the next couple months, which I am so fucking excited for. So much has changed in my life, and I haven't shared so much of it. I didn't tell you guys that I got chlamydia until now. I got chlamydia like a year ago. But it was a huge thing that I experienced, and I just felt like I couldn't share it. And so in 2022, I am sharing more vulnerably and honestly, and I am not holding myself to a schedule. I keep coming back to pushing myself to hold myself to a schedule. But guess what? Your episodes that you listen to of mine won't be as good. And so with all of those New Year's resolutions, the pressure of a New Year's resolution started to make me like hate mine and freak out about them. And I hope that you can think about your New Year's resolutions as something that you have an intention for every day in different ways, and it can be something that makes you feel good and light, because when we put pressure on ourselves to change everything about who we are, it's just so heavy and so full of shame, and there's no reason to feel shame. We are changing humans, and I really encourage you to think about 2021 and the things that you never thought you would do that you did then. The people you never thought you would meet that you met then. And something that happened for me in 2021 is I lost friends. I went through friendship breakups. And I love this quote that I know from Katie, Holistically Humble, my holistic nutritionist and yoga woman, my yoga lady, is people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And knowing that and sitting in that and knowing that not everybody is meant to stay in your life forever, and that's okay, and you can learn so much by who comes in and who goes out, is so empowering. And it's hard to also be the one to say to a friend, like, I don't feel like myself around you, and this person I'm growing into, I just don't feel like that is a positive influence having you in my life. And fuck, man, like, they're the same as breakups. Like, seriously, friendship breakups are a lot, and I had some in 2021, and it's something you sit in, because you you grieve friendships just like you grieve romantic relationships, just like you grieve jobs you've lost or left, and just like you grieve people who have died. And so with all of that, something that I have just started doing at the end of December that is really changing how I look at my day-to-day life too. I did this a lot in 2019 into 2020, but then I stopped, is every single morning I write down 5 little tiny things I'm grateful for that happened in the last 24 hours. So it's very, very specific, and they are related to things I just experienced the day before, and they make the good days better. That makes, what's the fucking quote? It makes the bad days good and the good days better, because it reminds me the little beautiful moments that happen every single day that are so small. It could be like how comfortable I am laying in my bed, or that lunch I ate that was delicious, or that call I had with that friend that made me laugh so much, or, there's so many different things. And doing that, picking 5, like sometimes it's hard to pick 5, but it makes you realize, oh, that day that I thought was a total waste or was the worst actually was a pretty good day. And it's a way for me to really find more joy in my life. And the hardest thing is starting with all of these things. I'm trying a 30-day yoga challenge with Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube. And luckily I have my mom as like an accountability person, and we do it together. But starting these things, the hardest thing is just beginning and continuing it, and eventually this stuff becomes a new habit, and not putting pressure on yourself and forcing yourself to do it, and having grace with yourself and saying this is something I want to do for my mental health and this is something that feels good in my body can take away the pressure, because you are worthy and you are enough, no matter if you have resolutions or not, no matter if you put them into practice or not. And as long as I love you for listening to this episode, because listening to this episode, I hope, is impacting you in a really great way that makes you feel good about yourself, because when we put shame on ourselves, we're not going to do anything positive with it. We just talk bad about ourselves. So I will talk so much more about that in this coming year, I guess. And I hope you follow at Human to Human Pod, because I finally won't be designing it myself, because guys, I've been designing it myself for like a year and a half, and it is so just like not as cute as it is about to be. The new purple just feels so calming to me, and I never thought I'd make it the purple. I thought it would be like a pastel color, but let life surprise you. Like, open yourself to new possibilities. I always say this, whatever life is going to bring into my life is 10 times fucking cooler than anything I could ever dream up. So let life surprise you. Open yourself up to the possibility of things going a different way than you predict, and embrace a new year and new possibilities and new beginnings. And old you is amazing. Old you is still you. She's always in there. I'm going to take care of her. I'm going to love her. And don't feel like you need to succumb to the societal pressure of all the bullshit. Something that I'm really hoping for 2021, and I'm going to be, not hoping, I am setting an intention for and going to work for in different ways every day in a way that feels good and like there's no pressure. It's just being unapologetic. So if you catch me saying sorry on the podcast, fucking write me a DM and say don't fucking say sorry, because why would I say sorry for being the person I am, for taking up space, for using my voice and just spreading messages that I think are important. So that's like such a big thing. Be unapologetically you, and have grace with yourself, and happy 2022. I will see you soon for more episodes. Subscribe, leave a review, and do all the things that tells the internet that you like the show.